Okay, guys, so just carrying on with perfect passive infinitives and future active infinitives. So we're just having a look at page 98, exercise 927. There's just a mix of the different infinitives there. I just want you to have a go at each one, pause the video, reveal the translation. So number one, have a go at it and then press play once you're done. Okay, so your answer to number one is to have been praised. Okay, because laudatos is a PPP, so this one is a perfect passive infinitive. Number two, pause the video, press play when you're done. Okay, number two is, oops, not that, to be about to leave. Because you'll have spotted, hopefully, the in there showing you that it's future. Okay. Number three, pause the video, have a go, reveal the translation after. Okay, missus essay is to have been sent. Missus is your PPP from Mito. Number four, pause the video and have a go. Okay, number four is a future one. So to be about to throw. If you put lie, then you haven't got it quite right because yakeo, I lie, does not have a PPP. Okay, so it can't form this future participle. But if you looked in the back, you'll find yakio with the I. Has the PPP yaktos, so therefore the future participle is yaktoros. Okay. Number five, pause the video and have a go. Okay, the answer to number five is to have been done or made. Factos, the PPP of facio. Okay. Check over those, check you understand. One thing that might be popping out is you might think, well, the future active infinitive has the same structure as the perfect passive infinitive, and yet one of them's passive and one of them is active. The reason for that is because yaktoros there, or discessioros, or any of those words with UR, is the future active infinitive, not the future passive infinitive. And that's because there's actually no such thing as a future passive infinitive in Latin. So if you have a future infinitive or a future participle, then it's going to be active and not passive. Okay, so moving on to some examples then of these words within indirect statements, because that's the whole point of learning them so that we can then use them within an indirect statement. So our first example that we've got here, audi v urbem captam esse. Now the first thing to spot is audi v is perfect. So that means when we look at this infinitive down here, we need to consider what tense is going to be best when we translate it. Okay, so let's start off with the easy stuff. So we've got I heard, and then we look at the rest of the sentence and we go, right, well, that's accusative, that's an infinitive, this is an indirect statement, so straight after my verb I need to put in the word that. Then we find our accusative, the city. Now captam esse literally means to have been captured. We're not going to say, I heard that the city to have been captured, because we're in an indirect statement here. So we need to translate it as a normal verb. However, this is perfect. This is also perfect. So that means, just like the rules with any other infinitive, as we've already met, the infinitive tense has to jump back one because the original verb was already in the past. So not I heard that the city was captured, but I heard that the city had been captured. It needs to go back into the pluperfect because the original tense of this verb has made it jump back one. Okay, example number 2. We've got our main verb is skieba. We've got 2 accusatives here, and then we've got our infinitive here. Note that it's a future infinitive. So the translation, literally I was knowing, that sounds a bit weird, so we can say I knew. Then after the verb we put in our that. Then we translate the accusative, these slave girls. Okay, now this is a future infinitive. So if we were translating it as a normal verb, it would be translated as will work. Now we're not going to say I knew that these slave girls will work because it sounds a bit strange. And this is in the past. So that means just like any other indirect statement, the past tense of that verb needs to make the tense of this infinitive jump back one. But what happens when a future infinitive jumps back a tense? Well, you've got two options. You can either say, I knew that these slave girls were going to, because the were puts it in the past, but the going to shows it's in the future. Or you can just say would. So here it will be would work. And that word would is essentially the idea of the future, but in the past tense. If you prefer to say, I knew that these slave girls were going to work, that's fine because that's still got a combination of the future in the past tense. Okay, let's have a look at number 3. We've got our verb here. Note that it's present tense. We've got our infinitive here. We've got 2 sets of accusatives here. We've got may and we've got multa donna. So we take our first one as our subject when we come round to translating the indirect statement. So the translation then, I promise that, then find the accusative, may, I. Okay, remember it's translated as if it's a nominative. Venditura messe, will sell. Multa donna, many gifts. Okay, and that one has just stayed as future tense because this tense here has not forced it to jump back one. It's just present tense originally, so nothing needs to happen to the tense of the infinitive. It just stays in the future. Okay, example number 4. We've got our verb, it's perfect tense. We've got our accusatives, and we've got our infinitive, which is future. I hoped that, amicum meum, my friend. And this one is future, but it needs to go back because this is in the past. So we can either say was going to or would come hodie today. There's some examples. So check you understand what's going on. Check you understand what's happening to those infinitives now that they're part of an indirect statement. Okay, the final thing that we need to talk about is semicolons. If you want to write this as a subheading, that would be good. It seems a bit of a bonkers subheading, but it's kind of the biggest clue that I can give you. So semicolons are used at GCSE to give you a hint, okay? If you find semicolons within a sentence just after you've translated an indirect statement, it means that it's like a continuous number of indirect statements, one after another. It's kind of easier just to look at an example and you'll see what I mean. So we've got an example here. You can see we've got a semicolon here, and that's it. Yeah, 2 semicolons, sorry. There could be many more though. There's no limit. And we start off with an indirect statement. So we've got the messenger, Dixit, said. Then you put in your that. Then you find your accusative, the war. Confectum esse is a perfect passive infinitive, but this was already perfect tense, so it goes back into the pluperfect. So said that the war had been finished. Okay, semicolon. Now what happens after a semicolon is it's another indirect statement but without an introductory verb, and the reason for that is because you just reuse the introductory verb that you had in the first indirect statement. So you've got options here. You could either say the messenger said that the war had been finished, semicolon, he said that, and then translate the indirect statement. Or what I would do is whenever you see a semicolon after an indirect statement, put in another that. Okay, so we've got from this first bit, the messenger said that the war had been finished. That, and then you just start your indirect statement again like you normally would. So after the that, you would find the accusative, which in this one is here, so that the enemy. And then your infinitive is fugice. This is a perfect tense infinitive, but we're still using this verb all the way up here, which was perfect. So this needs to go back into the pluperfect, so that the enemy had fled. Then we've got another semicolon, so put in another that, and then find your accusative. Se always refers to the doer of the verb, who was this guy, so we can say that he. And then your infinitive, audivisse, again, perfect, but it needs to go back a tense because of dixit, so that he had heard. Haec is these things, neuter plural pronoun. Arrege ipso, from the king himself. So with every semicolon, you're just starting another indirect statement, but not from the verb this time, from the word that. And then you're still finding an accusative as a subject and an infinitive as if it's a normal verb. Okay, hopefully that will all make sense, but feel free to rewatch and check that you understand exactly what's going on.